1, 2, 3.
So it is Monday afternoon, and I got the plastic up on Friday. I finished it Saturday morning. I just had one end wall to put the final layer. There's 2 layers on it. Because the wind was forecasted to come up really hard. And about, noon or so, it did.
Really nice on this side.
Is it now? Yeah, it must still be filling up. And I got the blowers turned on and trying to air up the walls before the wind came, and that was pretty successful, but anyway, the wind started and we had all kinds of problems, and it was a really stressful weekend, and I was out here till 8-9 o'clock at night fixing little issues and things that, you know, I knew were probably going to be a problem, but I tried to cut corners, and so it was a pretty stressful weekend, and I'll show you some of the things that happened. So one of the other problems that I had was trying to get the air pressure right in the double layer plastic, because basically it's just like a balloon. It blows the greenhouse up, which makes it way more wind resistant. But you got to be careful, because just like a balloon, you can blow it up, and I didn't think that was possible, but last night I proved that it was. So what I've had to do, I've got 2 blowers in, one on each end. I'm only running one, and that's working just fine. It's blowing this thing up like crazy. The wind doesn't even move it, doesn't touch it at all.
When it's fully inflated.
When it's fully inflated. If you deflate this, then it's flapping like crazy, and it'll rip that plastic right off. But the way that it's built, you know, this is the northwest side. This is where all of our wind comes from, and the wind can be blowing 30 or 40 miles an hour outside, and it barely moves. It's crazy. So the double layer is the way to go. But I had to mess with the airflow quite a bit, because too much and it expands, and it'll just keep expanding and start breaking things like what happened last night. Too little, and you know, the wind will basically just rip this northwest wall off. And so I've been kind of playing with that, trying. I think I've got it about right now to where, you know, we should be able to handle quite a little bit of wind, and it shouldn't tear itself apart. But I'm just amazed at how well that this is working. And
because this is the venting one.
yeah, this is the one, and I'm just letting air out. And right now I've just got duct tape over this to shut the airflow down a little bit, and I can see that I'm going to have to add some kind of a valve or something that I can control a little bit better than some duct tape. But this is working great right now.
Let's go look at the one that's going.
I'll add a valve later on, and I don't have that one quite wired in yet. Otherwise, that one on the northwest wall would be the one that's running, because this wall has a little bit more pressure than that wall. That's where the air is escaping. And if you look at this one, it's really tight, and I need that to be on the other side. And so I'm going to wire this switch up right here in a few minutes. Then I'll switch that one on and this one off. But here's this one, and this is all it is. Just a little blower motor. We got a switch there to shut it off and on. And if I shut it off, you know, the air immediately starts coming back out and it starts deflating, which we don't want because the wind is blowing pretty hard today. So I had 3 of these blower motors. I bought 3 right off the bat, and I'm only using 1, so I'll keep one as a backup, and I'll have, you know, the other one, if that one dies, I can switch this one on, or vice versa. It should work out pretty good. But that's kind of how that works, and it's surprising. It's really surprising how well it works.
That one fan is blowing up all of this.
The entire building, and that's the thing about air pressure. Once you get the pressure in the entire building, it doesn't take a lot to maintain that.
How long did it take to inflate the whole thing?
Well, last night I had to deflate the building last night to work on it because it was pulling that board up so hard that I couldn't move it. So I deflated it last night.
While it's winding and raining.
Yeah, and it's raining and the wind's blowing like crazy, but I had to do it.
How's it going?
Good. So once I got that more or less fixed, flipped it back on, it probably took 10 minutes. And I had to add, because I've got all the walls connected, and then this side of the roof was connected, but the front side wasn't. I thought that enough air would just flow in there.
Over the top.
Over the top, you know, over the peak. But it turns out that the blower expands that plastic so tight, it pulls it so tight that air couldn't pass over the peak. So I ended up installing another piece of, basically it's just dryer hose, but and that lets the air from the roof into the wall, and you know, vice versa. And so that really helped, and it expanded, like I said, in, you know, I think probably 10 minutes or less, it was back to pressurized like this, and you know, windproof again. So one of the problems I had last night, Sunday night, we had a big storm come through, which is, I mean, it's November, but it was like a thunderstorm. And the wind came up probably 50, 60 mile an hour gusts. The greenhouse held up, the plastic held up, but if you remember in one of the previous videos, I was using these self-tapping screws that I cussed every single time I put one in. Well, they didn't hold up. And this board down here actually bowed up from the pressure of the wind and everything else. It bowed up, sheared the screws off, and was almost a major disaster. But we got out here late, it was probably 8 o'clock, and caught it, and we were able to patch it back together and get it fixed. And that was maybe an engineering flaw. You know,
we were down to 2 self-tapping screws
I
left.
had 2 self-tapping screws left, and that was enough to patch it back together until this morning. Right away this morning, 6:30, I got up, I ran into town, and I bought some more treated lumber. And so to help alleviate the problem with all the pressure on that board down there, I put these boards in. They're up against the top of the pipe, so they can't go up, and it's going to help take some of the pressure off of those self-tapping screws. So I think that's going to fix it. I did get some bigger self-tapping screws that I went through this morning on all the poles that I could, and I put in another 1 or 2 on every pole. So hopefully that takes care of that problem. But
I think what you should explain too is that the reason why this came up is you had the channel lock up here,
Yeah.
but then we took it off because the other side started coming out.
Okay. So one of the reasons that that board came loose and sheared the bolts off basically is because in order to fix the other side, I robbed a bunch of the wire for this channel lock. And so half of this side of the greenhouse didn't have any of this wire in, which spreads the weight of the roof, you know, on this board and that board. But I thought it would hold up, and it didn't, because all the pressure then from this entire half, well, actually all the way over, was pulling on this one board. And so last night I robbed some of the wire back from that side to put on this side. I've got some ordered. I just didn't have enough to double everything up, and here by the end of the week I will. But that was the major problem with the front. I think if I'd have had the channel lock in, I wouldn't have had a problem, but I had to steal a bunch of that to prevent the other side, the north side, from blowing loose. But so I think we got that pretty much taken care of.
Fixed.
Yeah.
Always check your greenhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been, you know, it's pretty stressful right now because there's a lot riding on, you know, a chunk of plastic. Because if we start growing things in here and get this full of plants, and all of a sudden an end wall rips out, you know, it's going to kill everything this winter, and I'll be back up in North Dakota, you know, for good. So, and I really don't want that. So there's a lot riding on just that little chunk of plastic, and so it's a bit nerve-wracking right now.
What's next? Beds? Heater?
Well, I'm working on a heater. I'm gonna do a. We're building our own heater, and so that's
Shocker.
next. Yeah, so that's next, and we'll show you that monstrosity when we get going. Kind of already started, but yeah, it's gonna be cool. It'll work. So. The dog is enjoying it.
Listen.